Alright, finishing up the struts, very similar to the rears. However, probably not a surprise to anyone who's done this already, and it makes total sense. Just didn't think about it until I was in the middle of it. The front springs are much stiffer than the rear springs are. So you're going to do a lot more force in order to get the springs compressed in order to get the struts off. But same thing as the rears, the front strut nuts are fairly easy to get off if you got the right tool. Again, that's a special tool that's specified out in the manual. That is right there. And just a real pain to crank down to 55 foot-pounds, but you struggle and deal and make it work, and it happens. Anyway, so here is the right front. Put new nuts and bolts in there, and same old spring, and actually the aftermarket boot and jounce bumper that I bought, actually they didn't fit at all. So the jounce bumper and boot that were originally there were fine. A little bit of deterioration, but the jounce bumper would certainly do its job if the spring and strut all failed at the same time. You definitely hear it and feel it in a very short order. As I was crawling around underneath, there's a few oil leaks and whatnot. I haven't investigated where they're coming from yet. I would most likely say the oil pan and probably the cam cover, but we'll see when we get there. A couple things left to attach: the grounding strap and the wire for the ABS sensor. Everything's fine, and then I figured I'd just go ahead and show what I got, because I had some broken parts and all that good stuff. Let me turn sideways here. Alright, so the ABS sensor is that clip that you see there. If you buy it aftermarket, it's going to come with the whole cable and everything. It's like 43 bucks for the cable. But if you're doing a little bit of repair, and you can salvage what you got, again, just like the other side, actually, I had to cut off the nut in order to get it out because the bolt broke. But if you need it, it's an M6 by 25 millimeter captured washer bolt. I got these from Advanced Auto Parts, and same thing with the nut. And then I'll put a little bit of Loctite on there in order to secure it. And so that's the bolt and nut for the other side. And then the grounding strap has actually got a metal U-type clip. It's an M6 1.0, closest thing I found. It's not quite as wide as the original. Maybe someday I'll get into the original if I feel really curious about it. But anyway, and the bolt is a M6 1.0 20 millimeter, just a hex bolt. And that should take the torque. Again, it's got that extended surface area, so it should be able to take the torque that it's specified, 30 foot-pounds or something like that. Anyway, so that's what I got. I'll go ahead and do that. And after this, I'm going to start tearing in the transmission. I was going to do the, like I mentioned in the first video, I was going to do the lower control arms, but the pinch bolts are a one-time use bolt, so I figured that I would just go ahead and do those one time. So in order to obviously get to the transmission, you got to pull the axles out. That involves dropping the lower control arms, but then you also got to be wary, especially if you're doing all the suspension, transmission, and timing belt and all that stuff all in the same time frame like I am. Yeah, be careful what you disconnect and not disconnect, because you start disconnecting a couple of engine mounts and all of a sudden your whole engine and transmission's falling out of the car. So anyway, that's the one reason why I was taking so long to plan all this out. But anyway, so struts were very straightforward. Took forever, not just the work, not the work itself, but like I said, I got 3 kids, and I did one strut, and I ended up having to wait almost 2 weeks to get around to the other strut, just because of time and work and everything else. So anyway, I'm enjoying the project. I'm doing this all with hand tools. There's nothing pneumatic going on. That's my next purchase. Once I can convince the wife to let me spend about $500 to $1,000, I'll be getting pneumatic tools, probably a ratchet and a impact wrench, sockets. Right now I'm liking Ingersoll Rand for the tools, and the sockets I'm actually looking at a company called Right Tool out of Barberton, Ohio. My dad bought a couple of sockets from them a long time ago, and one of them cracked, so I tracked down the company. They were still open. It was a 10mm that I was actually using to reattach the struts. So contacted them. They said, yep, no problem. Sent me a catalog. It's like some ridiculously long catalog. One of their distributors down here in the Charlotte, North Carolina area is Applied Industrial Technologies. Again, just like Snap-on, the tools aren't cheap, but you know, it's all made in the USA, and you know, not that I'm a anti-establishment kind of guy. I guess I am a little bit, but I don't have a Snap-on truck coming around my workplace all day long, so I need some place that I can go and get what I need. And you know, and then I even did some research online about Snap-on torque wrenches versus Harbor Freight, and in some cases the Harbor Freight ones are actually more accurate than the Snap-on ones. So anyway, nothing against Snap-on. If you got a whole Snap-on toolbox, and I know people do, they get the free ATVs from Polaris because they buy so much, and that's great. But it's not my workplace. It's my own money coming out of my own pocket. I don't have a way to work it back. So anyway, I might look at Right Tool for my next set of tool needs. Really disappointed that Craftsman and Sears and all that failed, because virtually the entire rest of my toolbox is all Craftsman. So I use those tools with varied pressure because I certainly don't want to break them, but you know, at least I've got an alternative to Harbor Freight and Lowe's Cobalt and Home Depot Husky and all that stuff, because it is all made in China, and yeah, I got a little bit of a thing against China. So anyway, 7 minutes of rambling, but that's what I'm at right now. Got 2 weeks of vacation, so I'll start tearing in the transmission, pulling all the goodies out of that. The one thing I did note is that the shift cable hold down clips are supposed to be a one-time use only product also. Modern Performance has them, so I may just get them and have them show up in a couple of weeks or a week or so. And I could always go down to my dealer. My dealer always gets everything in from Atlanta like fresh the next day almost. So it's about a 45-minute drive. So 45-minute drive versus having it come to my house, we'll see. Whoever owns Modern Performance, awesome website. Thank you guys. I've used you guys for ideas and products in the past. Sorry I didn't buy everything from you, but I just worked slowly and methodically, and I just didn't want to spend a whole ton of money on shipping when the dealer is going to take care of it all for me. So anyway, that's where I'm at right now. 8 minutes and 15 seconds. I'll call it quits. See you, bye.